Unfortunately, these days, head concussions are synonymous with football, but they're not just a fall season occurrence. According to some medical professionals, the rate of concussions pick up during the summer months due to outdoor sports activity. Now, for female athletes, the data is there as well, but the headlines are not, and football continues to take the hits. I'd like to welcome Executive Director of the Brooklyn Pitbulls, Lloyd Rodriguez. Good to have you back again. And for the first time, I also want to welcome Angelo, Marsella, Director of the Sports Medicine at Professional Physical Therapy. Welcome, Angelo.
Thanks for having me.
You know, when we talk about head concussions, you think of football. But during the summer months, more emergency rooms are visited by head concussion injuries, right? Head injuries, Absolutely. From what I gather.
Yeah, I mean, the rates have gone up since 2001. I mean, to now, there's over 300,000 recorded trips to the ER for head concussions or head injuries or something like that. That's doubled since 2001. So it's up there. A lot more kids are active in sports, and it's shown in the numbers.
Especially when it comes to cycling, softball, various sports. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Mike, I've been doing football for 13 years as my own organization, and we also added lacrosse. But not long ago, I went to a forum at NYU for hockey, youth hockey, and they're having the same problem. And me, a big football lover of football, I'm a little animosity towards the media for talking about and speaking about football only. So, I think it should be something that's across the board for everyone. We're concerned about all children, and all sports. So we want to make sure that everybody is protected.
Now, women basically have gone unnoticed when it comes to head concussions, but the information is out there and it seems to be picking up, especially when it comes to soccer, maybe even lacrosse, and some say even softball.
No doubt about it. And the reality of it is that women do not have the same neck strength as men do and males do, and that's definitely a big proponent in why people get concussions. So a lot of the neck strength that men have, unfortunately, the women are not as strong as them. So that plays a big factor in how your head moves, right? So concussion is pretty much your brain moving within your head. So without having a strong neck and musculature around the neck, your head's going to move a little bit more. So a lot of people have the false sense of, hey, I got a helmet on, I'm safe. That's not the reality of it. There's a lot of other things that go into play when you're dealing with concussion. You want to try to prevent that movement of the head in your brain, in your skull.
They say also it alters the female's hormonal cycle.
No doubt about it. So like the huge kind of age from puberty to like menopause is a big area where women are affected, right? Because they have a tendency to have more migraines than males. So what happens is there's a lot of hormonal things going on in women at that age group, and migraines and concussions are very, very similar in how they react. So there are a lot of studies going on right now saying, hey, let's kind of treat these migraines like concussions a little bit, and let's figure out what's going on here.
What is the difference also between a head concussion and a head injury?
Well, I mean, a concussion is the brain, like I said, the brain moving in the skull.
Right.
Go ahead,
So you have an injury to the brain. Whether even though they may call, say, like a mild concussion, it's still an injury to the brain. And again, like you said, when you get that hit, sometimes it could be like, I guess, I'm not really sure, but I guess in an explosion, if you get a strong enough explosion, and it still rattles the brain. So there's definitely injury, with the stems or the cells in the brain. But I want to get back to what he was saying about the neck. Now, again, me being a defender of football, I love the sport. We don't have a lot of concussions at the youth level. However, speaking to someone at the NCAA, they was talking about ice hockey. Rate of concussion at that level, ice hockey, it passes.
Is it professional college? You're talking about college?
It's college. It exceeds football. And so my question is, why are we talking about all sports? It's almost like they're putting a black eye on football, but the other sports, and they're even passing with concussions, they're not being spoken about. These are, for example, ice hockey with women, those are potential mothers. They need to have their senses and their thoughts clear to raise a child. Why isn't that not a big deal? That's something I think people need to start talking about. Not just soccer, because a lot of people started attacking soccer, but we're talking ice hockey. That ice is harder than grass and turf. So when they fall down on ice, there's no give at all. So there's a strong hit.
But are the blows worse is a head concussion no matter what? If you're in football, if you play football, or you play soccer,
yeah.
Is the trauma the scene.
Yeah, so back in the day, they used to do a rating scale for concussions, mild, medium, severe, and they've kind of gone away from that. They're saying concussion's a concussion, all right, and that's the way it is, and you treat each person individually. Some people's symptoms are greater than others, but you're treating the individual. The whole idea of, I got my bell rung and things like that are kind of out the window. Those are no longer kind of terms people use anymore. Like as Lloyd was saying too, like I think the level that he's at is probably the most important level to deal with, that youth level. And we talk, you talk about coaching and teaching the kids at that age proper technique and things like that. That's where it needs to start, because that's the most important age that these kids are learning their habits.
You're talking about neck strength, especially, I remember early back in the 70s, the 80s, they had those neck pads,
Yep.
And they used to absorb the shock of the blow. Why was that taken out of the game?
Well, Mike, I'm going to say, how about the size of the neck, developing the neck? I mean, I remember I was a kid in the 70s, and I'm watching these football players, their necks were bigger than their heads.
They were all neck.
And the neck is, they're looking for some of the device to stabilize the head. It's the neck. And we got away from developing the neck muscles and the back muscles that's connected. But also, I hear a lot of people in the schools, they're no longer using those things, and so now people are more susceptible. And then we were talking about testosterone. If someone is not physically muscular, getting that strength early, one kid may be more susceptible to concussion than others. So now a kid with less testosterone versus a kid with more is probably going to be more susceptible to concussion.
Is that at a certain age?
Yeah, so people's body develop and hit puberty at different levels, right, at different ages. So I agree with Lloyd. It definitely, depending on what age you're at and how quickly your body develops, that plays a factor in how your musculature develops, right? But there is something to say about safety equipment. I mean, helmets and helmet companies, shoulder pads and things of that sort definitely play a factor in reducing the risk of it, but it's not going to be the be-all, end-all.
Right, and in football, there is tackling techniques.
Of course.
And that sort of thing.
Hey, Mike, I just want to say this before, I don't know how much time we have. I want to interrupt. We're getting out in the community other programs that you may be off the air. This is a terrible tragedy for youth sports, and there's a lot of information that we get from this show as this gentleman's coming on, Angelo, and people like Angelo. We need this show. We need the show to stay on, and we really need this show not to be taken off of the air.
Well, I appreciate that, but we are. I'll be around.
We need this show. We need this segment. We need this segment. We need this segment. We don't need it to be taken off the air. We really need it. I came on, and a lot of people appreciate me. Appreciate you.
Lloyd. All right, cool. We got to continue on this.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, what is the latest developments in terms of these head concussions as far as technique, diagnosis, treatment?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, it starts at the age on the field, right? So a lot more schools are getting athletic trainers at the practice sites and at the high school level and the college level, and that's kind of what we do. My professional PT, we provide athletic training services for many organizations, 50 plus contracted schools where they're at the field, being the first set of eyes on kids when they're potentially getting injuries and concussions to that fact. When they do get a concussion, obviously they're put in the right hands medically. And then there's a gradual return to play program, making sure that these kids are going back into sport safely.
All right, cool. All right, and for those editorial comments there, I had nothing to do with. All right, cool.